conditions. In June. My plan is to harvest it for the straw, and then use that to mulch crops.
Yep. So you plant it before the winter.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Really nice.
What's the name of it?
It's winter rye.
Winter rye. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of many types of cover crops we use.
Yep.
So it's just for insulation, basically, to keep the crops warm.
It's to scavenge excess nutrients from the soil.
Oh.
So you planted a crop and then you've laid down your compost or your other amendments, and then once the crop will take out a certain amount of those nutrients, your cash crop, and then the cover crop, what helps prevent soil erosion, and it ties up whatever nutrients are left in the soil, ties them up in the organic matter, and then we either harvest the straw, which in that case would be taking away those nutrients in the form of a straw, or we plow the crop down. And the plan is to harvest this for straw, but that plan can change based on the weather conditions next spring and how it affects my rotation.
Wow.
We have a general rotation plan, but that's often impacted by a very wet spring or a very dry spring.
And that's due to because the nutrients from the soil that's why you switch. I just remember in movies and stuff they'll switch fields because this one we did last year, so it's got to replenish itself.
Blocks, that we manage this field under, and there's this is the brassicas block, and that includes cabbage and kales and collard greens and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower. Although the Swiss chard is not in that category; it's actually in the beef family, but. Since it's a leafy green, it's just easier to manage keeping it close to the other leafy greens. And then the other block, we had another block beyond the Brussels sprouts that was winter squash this season. And then beyond that white spreader over there was our carrots and beets, parsnips and turnips and crops, root crops like that.
So how many people would you estimate a field this big necessarily?
I think
I don't know.
We have a CSA of over 400 members. We also grow for a cooperative CSA that has 330 members, and then we still have other crops to sell to stores like A Market and Concord Food Co-op.
Yep. So what other techniques do you use to prevent soil erosion? Because we know that's one of the big issues with commercial farmers.
Well, honestly, it's not that big an issue, I don't think, in the Northeast. Unless you're planting close to, really close to the river.
Yeah.
And it has happened, like with the floods. I know a lot of farmers in Vermont, but it was an excessive amount of water, washed away entire parts of fields. We don't have so much erosion issues, at least on any of the land I farm, unless there's one field if I cut the trees down and got really close to the riverbank, I suppose I could see some erosion there.
Right.
Sometimes we have runoff issues, in a wet season, where you might have gullying or something happen. We prevent that by leaving grassed areas between. You see, I have a buffer between the hill and the cultivated grounds, and so we use buffers, and our hill. This isn't hilly enough to justify contour farming, but there are probably some places in New Hampshire where they're using those techniques. But to your basic question about how organic farming is different than conventional farming, I would say the primary thing is that we work on soil health. So if you have good, healthy soil, a good, diverse amount of microorganisms, slow release nutrients, when you're using compost and the animal derived and plant-derived fertilizers, as well as some mined material, rock phosphate and stuff like that.
Okay.
Lime. We use some wood ash too for adjusting pH. You're building a strong, healthy soil, and hopefully your plant is strong and healthy as well.
Yes.
So a strong, healthy plant can fend off disease.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, just like if you eat healthy, you can fend off that cold.
Right.
If you're hitting McDonald's and Papagenos, then maybe
something I need to work on.
Me too. And maybe I should learn how to cook.
You're not so good at fending off. Well, at your age, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You get to my age, you got to think about that stuff. So, that's the core thing. But despite that, we still have a lot of issues to deal with. Weed pressure is really high on organic farms, so we use a lot of mechanical cultivation, to stay ahead of the weeds. We don't use any herbicides. You mentioned phosphates. That's Roundup, and that's pretty common on all of your conventional farms. What they would do is they would come in, spray their Roundup, kill all the.
Oh, that's what the pesticide is called.
Yeah, it's an herbicide.
Okay, herbicide.
They also sell it like in stores too.
Yeah, you can get a lot of people squirt it on their, around the cracks on the sidewalks and stuff. It's I believe it's an organophosphate.
Yeah, that's what most of pesticides are.
So a conventional farm would spray that. I think I really don't know too much about it because I don't use it, but there'd be a mellowing period, and then they would go in and plant their crop. Now there's some. You've probably heard about genetically modified crops.
Yes,
there's
absolutely.
The Roundup Ready crops. Corn, most of the cow corn, I would think, on conventional dairy farms is GMO. And the farmer can spray it with Roundup, plant the corn, and the corn is resistant to the organophosphates. The downside to that is that you're going to build resistance, and just like with BT, there's also BT corn. It keeps Bacillus thuringiensis, which is something we can use. There's an organic that's an organic compound, and there's formulations that we can use in organic farming to kill caterpillars, cabbage borer. There's a whole host of things that it can be used for. But the prevalence of this Roundup or this BT corn is creating resistance, and resistance from bugs is you spray something on it, it'll kill a certain percentage of the population, but what doesn't die
breeds
resistant to it
because and make offspring that's resistant. So it's the same thing with bacteria and antibiotics today.
Right, exactly. So they have this Roundup Ready and this BT. Even with the Roundup Ready, there's weeds. There's new types of weeds. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you take out something else, it's going to replace it. There's some weed in there that's just waiting for its opportunity to become the #1 weed. And so it's we look at the farm as a whole system. Healthy soil, amend with a minimal amount of things that come from outside of the farm.